Welcome to Cybersecurity Awareness TV, episode number 406, recorded September 17th, 2022. My name is Mac Jackson Jr. I am a consultant and a cybersecurity researcher. My program and services here on Cybersecurity Awareness TV will help you benefit by understanding the threats of cyber attacks. I interview law enforcement and I come with you with information on how to protect your family and your business. I would like to thank all of us and all of you out there that have helped us here on Cybersecurity Awareness TV on the WWDBTV network. Bring this information to you folks every week here. You can find out more about my business and my company by going to my website at macjacksonjr.com, macjacksonjr.com. You can also find us on vandersoncybergroup.com as well. That's Vanderson Cyber Group. Remember folks, as we say in the world of social media, remember to share, like, and subscribe, and hit that notification button to stay tuned of all the latest events going on with Cybersecurity Awareness TV. And folks, if you'd like to sponsor us as well, you can go to our Patreon channel at patreon.com/MacJacksonJr. Folks, in today's episode, we have two stories for you folks that you definitely need to sit tight and listen to. The first one we're going to talk about in the cyber news is the hacking attack that has breached the Los Angeles Unified School District for students' personal identifiable information. Second, folks, our second story is concerning Uber. That's right, folks. Uber, the rideshare company, had a major cyber attack that affected them. And this, folks, was very severe. And as we do every week, folks, in our third segment, we talk about what you can do today and what you can tell your friends, your associates at work, what you can do to protect yourselves from these type of cyber attacks. In our first segment, cyber news. Hackers breached the Los Angeles Unified School District, known as the LAUSD, for personal identifiable information of students. Last week, the Los Angeles Unified School District stated that that their data security systems were affected by this type of cyber attack. The hackers were able to find information. However, the school district states that the essential information, such as the employee health care and payroll, were not affected by this type of cyber attack. You guys remember that the Los Angeles School District is one of the second largest school districts here in the United States, serving over 600,000 students with more than 1,000 schools. Recently, the district was a victim to this data breach that exposed the personal data information of over 800,000 students. This data breach is a string of data breaches that affected school districts across the country. Recently, in last November, Miami-Dade County public school system was hit by a ransomware attack that led to over 350,000 students and staff members losing their personal information. This data breach has led to more sophisticated measures that have been put in place by school districts across the country, including the LA Unified School District. Our investigation follows a story from CBS News. Here's a story from LA.
It was clear to us that there was an external entity, a bad actor, involved.
A hacker targets the LAUSD in a massive cyber attack. The FBI, Homeland Security, and local investigators are on the case of that cyber attack that could have done massive damage to the LAUSD. CBS News' Jeff DeWin is live in Silver Lake now with details on the attack, how the district discovered it, and what it's doing to safeguard its systems now, Jeff.
Pat and Jeff, the district has been working to reset everybody's password. They started with administrators, teachers, and then students based on age. And we should tell you, this cyber attack has the attention of the White House.
School resumed as scheduled Tuesday, despite what's being called a ransomware attack. As a precaution, the district deactivated all of its systems, so teachers like Scott Whitney couldn't access their lesson plans for hours.
I think for some of the new teachers or teachers that are primarily online based with instruction, it's probably been a really hard day.
The district detected unusual activity Saturday night in LAUSD's facility systems, which manages contract bidding. The superintendent says by late Monday night, scans confirmed all systems would be active for Tuesday, including bus services, nutrition programs, and payroll. The superintendent says he's been advised by the FBI to not reveal how the breach happened.
We received no demand at this point.
Darren Guccione is the CEO of Keeper Security, which makes cybersecurity software that prevents ransomware. He says computer files can get locked up through phishing or a dark web attack.
Dark web attack is when a cyber criminal takes stolen login credentials, uses those stolen login credentials to attack websites, applications, and systems of an organization in order to penetrate their systems.
We monitor about 1 billion, that's with a B, billion events and attacks a month on our own networks in the city.
Everyone came back to campus after it was determined it was safe to do so. However, the district had all of its 70,000 employees and 540,000 students reset their passwords.
The resetting a password happens only in the school site.
Teacher Scott Whitney was able to reset his password by midday. While learning is often done digitally nowadays, many students got a taste of old school instructions with actual pens and paper.
For English teachers, it's a lot easier. We have books, right? And there's writing that can be done in class.
And we are waiting to learn if all of the passwords have been reset. The superintendent did say that the system that manages student information was breached. So far, there have been no signs that health or social security information was taken. We are live in Silver Lake. Jeff Nguyen, CBS 2 News.
The Federal Bureau of Investigations, FBI, is looking into these new type of cyber attacks that's affected the institutions of education across the country. According to the FBI, these attacks are carried out by a ransomware group called Vice Society. According to the reports by NBC News, officials states that there have been warning signs from the FBI to stay on the lookout for these types of cyber attacks and to harden their security measures within the organizations to protect the interest and the data assets of the school districts. Here's another story we'd like to show you from NBC News.
Tonight, we're also learning about a new cybersecurity and ransomware threat directed towards schools nationwide. Here's what we know right now. The FBI and Homeland Security have been investigating these threats for about a week or so. They say the attacks are being carried out by a ransomware group called Vice Society. The alert says that schools are particularly lucrative targets because of the amount of sensitive student data in school systems. Homeland Security is warning cyber attacks may increase as the new school year gets underway and criminal ransomware groups see opportunities in school districts with limited cybersecurity resources. NBC News investigative correspondent Tom Winter is joining us now from New York. Tom, what more do we know about Vice Society? Who's behind it?
Well, that's something that the authorities are still trying to determine the exact origin of Vice Society. They appear to be an overseas network. There's been some private security, so this is not DHS or the FBI or CISA, which is the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, part of DHS, but other private online sleuths, if you will, and people in the cybersecurity space, Tom, say that they might be Eastern European or perhaps another country might be behind them, namely Russia. Still trying to determine that. Not suggesting that this is a state-sponsored act, but this kind of all came up in the course of the last week or so when the LA Unified School District had identified themselves as being a target of a cyber attack and ransomware. And I think that's something that people are going to be looking towards here, as you alluded to, as the school year begins.
You know, you and I have both covered a lot of cyber attacks over the years, and CISA among them is, of course, leading the charge there. What other attacks is this group allegedly responsible for, and what are they looking for? Is it money? Is it data? What are they looking for?
Well, it's a little bit of both. So one of the things that they do is not only do they lock down your system by putting this ransomware up, in other words, pay us or you'll never get access to your files again, period, because they've been encrypted, but also, according to the information that we received today from CISA and the FBI, they initially begin by infiltrating the network, Tom, and exploiting the data. So in other words, they go in, they don't just lock it down, they take all the data and make a copy of it, and then they lock it down. So that's kind of a two-pronged attack. attack. And obviously the downside of that is, one, that they have potentially your child's information, potential information about who their parents are, their school background, but then also they can cause, and LA alluded to this, a significant disruption in their networks and their ability to function and operate because they lock down those files, and it can make things very difficult for schools to operate, which don't have enormous budgets, relatively speaking, when we're talking about IT budgets, to operate and deal with these type of threats.
We should remind the audience, CISA stands for essentially cybersecurity in the United States, Cybersecurity Command. So let's talk through some of the tips for school districts, what they can do right now to protect their information.
Right. So right now, first off, the FBI is saying, look, if you notice any sort of suspicious activity, you need to reach out to us right away. And if you can provide us with some of your logs, your IT logs, so the activity on your network, that can be very helpful, because one of the things that they have identified, Tom, are the type of off-the-shelf, as they call it, type of methods that they're using to attack. It's a Hello Kitty ransomware and all sorts of other names. People that are in the cybersecurity field will be familiar with them that are watching us, but they know the types of signatures and the types of tools that this group uses. They don't appear to use any sort of proprietary tools. So they're asking, if you notice any sort of suspicious activity, to reach out to us. But the other thing is, Tom, all the normal precautions apply. Do you have all your latest updates? Are you using VPNs and your remote systems correctly? And are you on the lookout for phishing emails? All important things, they say, can help protect from one of these attacks.
And folks, like we've always stated here on Cybersecurity Awareness TV, our best defense is through education and awareness of these types of cyber attacks, to take measures that we can do to protect our personal interests and our business from these attacks. Folks, hashtag, like we always say, hashtag stay cyber woke. We'll be right back here on Cybersecurity Awareness TV after these messages. Hello folks, this is Mac Jackson Jr. from Vanderson Cyber Group. The problem with businesses today is that they are affected by cyber attacks from around the world, but companies are not sure of what to do. Normally, they are reactive instead of proactive. But folks, cyber attacks can affect your bottom line, and it will affect you financially, legally, and your business reputation. Here at Vanderson Cyber Group, we can help you develop a policy by training your employees on what to do if they are involved in a cyber attack, and how to mitigate it and fight against it. Folks, we call it here hashtag stay cyber woke. And that's Vanderson Cyber Group here in Las Vegas and around the world. You can reach me, folks, at VandersonCyberGroup.com or my website, MacJacksonJr.com as well. Here locally, 702-868-0808. Give us a call today, folks. We must fight back. Hi folks, welcome back to Cybersecurity Awareness TV. I'm your host, Mac Jackson Jr. In this segment, we're talking about the hackers that have breached and struck Uber rideshare databases. Uber, the official Twitter page of Uber, acknowledges that they have had a data breach in their organization, and they're taking defensive actions to protect their data and their information. So it's very, very important that we take a look at this and see how does this affect you if you are a customer of Uber. Uber, folks, again, is a rideshare organization, and they have come out and just told everyone that yes, they've had a major cyber attack, and one of the chief engineers, security engineers of Uber, reported that this particular hack has penetrated the actual cloud services and Microsoft services, including the Amazon Web Services, and they were able to print out information and show the public, these hackers were able to print out information and show the public that they've actually penetrated their data systems. So they're actually showing that, yeah, we have your data. This has been very, very detrimental for Uber, and they are on top of it, folks, with the best teams in the world to make sure that information is protected. This is also coming from Uber, that they are working on their information to make sure that your information is always protected. Here's a report that we'll show to you from Fox Live News today.
A story that is literally breaking as we speak. We are learning right now that Uber is suffering a computer system hack. Uber has been hacked. The rideshare company confirmed on Twitter that they are in touch with law enforcement, and there are screenshots floating around of what that hacker has claimed to do. For more on what's happening with the largest rideshare company in the world, we're being joined right now by Sam Curry, joining us live on the program. Sam, thanks so much for being with us. You are a bug bounty hunter and staff security engineer. Sam, what can you tell us about this cybersecurity incident? That's what Uber is calling it at this hour. Do some of the hallmarks of this hack look familiar to you?
Yeah, they definitely do. So I'm a bug bounty hunter, and I've been very active on like the Uber's bug bounty program. And all of a sudden, I got like an email notification that somebody had commented on the report that I'd submitted a few years ago, and they basically commented that, hey, I've hacked this HackerOne account, the HackerOne account of like an Uber employee, and they basically just said like, hey, we've completely compromised Uber, please get in touch. And immediately after that, we sent like a message to them to get in touch with the person who had supposedly compromised like the Uber account, and they basically showed us proof that they were able to access like everything for Uber. So at that point, I tweeted about it and kind of shared a little bit more about that.
Okay, Sam, you're going to have to fill us in. What does a bug bounty hunter do?
Yeah, sure. So a bug bounty hunter basically works as a contractor for like a company like Uber. And what we'll do is we'll submit one-off security vulnerabilities. So for instance, if I find a way to like, compromise user information on Uber, I'll just report that to their bug bounty program, and they'll pay like a one-time payment to me.
Okay, so right now though, what would your message be to Uber employees? Or like myself, I use Uber all the time. I'm a Uber customer. Should I be concerned about this? Where's my information right now, you think?
Yeah, I think there's definitely a reasonably well to be concerned about it, because right now it appears from a general perspective, normally your data is going to be stored in like Amazon Web Services or Google or GCP. And it appears the attacker has access to both of those services. So I would be concerned that your data may be like accessed by this hacker.
Okay, so you are contracted out to Uber, correct? Are you confident in their abilities to get this under control?
Yeah, I really can't speak too much on their behalf, but like what it appeared was, the attacker had like a lot of access, and from that point, like the data is already retrieved. So it's hard to say.
Okay, I want to put up a tweet that you tweeted earlier tonight. You said someone hacked an Uber employee's HackerOne account and is commenting on all of the tickets. They likely have access to all of the Uber HackerOne reports. Help us decipher that. And then you said the attacker is claiming to have completely compromised Uber, showing screenshots where they're full admin on AWS and GCP.
Yeah, absolutely. So the first tweet that I did was basically just sharing that like they've accessed an Uber employee's HackerOne account. And HackerOne is basically a platform for people like me to submit security vulnerabilities to companies like Uber. So since they're able to compromise that account, that means the attacker had access to all of their security reports on their HackerOne program. So basically, like right off the bat, it's really, really bad. But the second tweet, after we were able to get in touch with the hacker, they basically told us that they had compromised the entire AWS and the entire GCP instance. And what those are basically like hosting services, right? So instead of Uber having their own computers, they go to a company like AWS, where AWS will host the computers and all of the data for Uber. So since they're able to log into that, they're basically able to access like all of the data for Uber. Allegedly, what they've said in like their Telegram messages.
Okay, so is it your understanding that if you were to try to get an Uber ride right now, you would have issues? Is that, do you think, what's going on? Or is this just internal with employees themselves? And from some of the posts on social media from Uber employees, this is really unsavory stuff that is being posted. Have you seen that?
Yeah, absolutely. It appears like the attacker is just causing like a lot of chaos. They haven't really established like an intent. They're not necessarily trying to like sell the data, or they really haven't said what they're trying to do. I think we could open up the Uber app and be completely fine, but I think the part that's really going to be not good is like a month or 2 months from now, when the attacker, if they decide to release the data, or if the attacker at any point decides to like start causing chaos, they could basically stop running services where the Uber app may potentially stop working.
Okay, Sam, you have been speaking to Uber employees. I just want to put up this other tweet that you had from an Uber employee who texted you this, I believe. They said, feel free to share, but please don't credit me. They said at Uber, we got an urgent all caps email from IT security saying to stop using Slack, and that Uber employees told you that now anytime they request a website, they're taken to a redacted page with a pornographic image, and the message says, F you wankers. So clearly there's a lot of, hilarity, ridiculousness, by whoever did this, but it is causing a lot of problems. We're in the early stages of this. This story is literally breaking as we speak, Sam, but when do you think Uber's going to get this under control?
It may take, a week, 2 weeks, or sometimes even up to a month, depending on what they've done. Because if the attacker has been in there for a while, they could have backdoored services or compromised other things. And it will take a long time for Uber to completely verify that the attacker no longer has access and figure out what data has been leaked.
Okay, I guess we'll just keep following this. What's your role going to be in this? Obviously, a lot of Uber employees are reaching out to you. You're going to monitor as well. You're in this community. Any idea who did this?
I have no real clue, and it's really hard to say because, in a lot of the hacks you see, they'll immediately demand money, or they'll kind of
right.
have a purpose, right? But this attacker really hasn't done that, so it's really hard to say who the attacker is.
All right, Sam Curry, thank you for your time tonight. We'll stay on top of this story here on Live Now. Maybe we'll speak again. Thanks.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks so much.
Folks, as we have researched here, it always stated in our show, Cybersecurity Awareness TV, that these type of attacks are always most likely the human factor that can cause this type of data breach. And it could also be an insider job. Please stay tuned to this show and others to find out what has happened to this type of attack and what Uber will be doing in the future to protect their data. Uber on Thursday, again, saying this investigation is a cybersecurity incident, they're calling it. Meaning that they want to call it a data breach, yeah, they're saying that it's just an incident because they're recognizing that this has happened to their internal records or internal databases. And they understand that their information is at risk. To continue this investigation, I want to show you a video that we found from a story by KTVU Fox 2 out of San Francisco. Here's the story.
Uber says its computer systems have been hacked. The San Francisco-based rideshare company announced in a tweet yesterday that it was responding to what it termed a cybersecurity incident. Several reports say a hacker posted on a company's Slack channel announcing the security breach. The hacker also posted photos of internal Uber networks and systems. Today, Uber said there is no evidence the breach involved access to sensitive user data.
Okay, so for more on this, we're joined by Casey Ellis, the founder and chief technology officer at BugCrowd, a crowdsourced cybersecurity platform. Okay, so this alleged hacker was able to gain control of Uber's internal systems. How worried should users be about their personal information?
Yeah, and just to correct that slightly, they were able to gain access inside Uber's internal network. So there's a nuanced but pretty important distinction. It's not confirmed at this point that they had control or access to everything in that sense, but they were definitely in a far more privileged position than they should have been. So that's a lot of what I believe the Uber incident response and cybersecurity teams are probably going to have a long weekend figuring out, and heart goes out to everyone working on that particular piece of it. But with respect to user data itself, the initial statements that they've made are pretty clear at this time. They don't believe that private user data has been accessed. I think, for users in terms of concern around that going forward, just keeping an eye out for further updates from them is probably the best bet.
But how can Uber be so sure that this hacker didn't gain access to all of that sensitive data? I mean, the hackers shared images suggesting that they got full access to the cloud-based systems that Uber uses to store customer information and other financial data.
Yeah, I mean, look, this is what happens after there's a breach. Like this is something that I've helped organizations with a number of times and seen the inside of. The minute something like this happens, your first priority is making sure that you've got an understanding and an awareness of the situation and getting it under control in terms of the hacker actually being inside. But then the process is going through and figuring out what they were able to do or what they got access to, what they even looked at while they were running around. And that's what's going on right now. So as things get released, it's as I would presume, based on how this tends to work, it's discoveries and information being basically ascertained within Uber to the point where they're comfortable to share it with users to make sure that there's comfort. And if there's need in the future to say, hey, here's a precaution that you need to take, then we'll expect to see that pop out as well.
Okay, so Casey, what does this breach say about Uber's defenses?
Yeah, look, I mean, it's an interesting one because I think the kinds of things that were discussed, social engineering is being called out as the initial attack vector. So it's essentially exploiting the human. And the interesting thing about that is that even the most sophisticated organizations have people in them, and people aren't perfect in terms of security controls. Like, we don't always respond perfectly to things that could create adverse security condition or even a breach like this one. So, I think to draw the conclusion that this happened, therefore everything's terrible, I don't necessarily think we've got enough information to say that just yet. And again, I as a practitioner, as someone from the field, I'm mostly thinking about the folks that are actually digging into this over the weekend and trying to get everything under control and figure out what precautionary steps need to be taken forward. So that's an unnecessary distraction for them, I think.
Yeah, and it sounds like from the reporting that this hacker posed as a colleague and I guess tricked one of the Uber employees into handing over their credentials. Does that suggest to you that maybe along with upgrading cybersecurity defenses, you also need to do some retraining?
Yeah, look, I think that's never not true. This is, something that we talk about at BugCrowd a lot, is this concept of being productively paranoid. So you don't want to be so paranoid that you're not actually able to do your job because you're fearful, but you want to be just paranoid enough to ask yourself, hang on, should I actually do this when things like this happen? And that's an ongoing process. There's always a new variation that attackers come up with to try to exploit human behavior, and that'll never end until the bad guys pack up and go home, which I don't expect they will. The other concept is, I mean, business is good for those guys, so they'll keep going. The other side of it is building it like it's broken, in the sense of, if, like, presuming that something like this does fail, like there is a user that clicks on the wrong thing or provides access that they shouldn't. Okay, let's assume that that's happened now. How do you limit the ability for an attacker to do other things once they've gotten that initial access? I think those two things, it's not just an Uber lesson out of this one. I think it's a salient reminder for every organization that this is pretty important stuff to stay on top of.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, it certainly is. All right, Casey Ellis, BugCrowd, really appreciate your time tonight. Thank you.
Folks, one of the major points of both of these stories in both segments today is that there are large corporations and large organizations that have sophisticated databases and IT teams that are very, very good at their job in protecting your personal information, personal data. So in other words, there's software, there's systems, there's trained people working in these organizations to protect your data. So how does it fail? It fails, folks, because of the human factor. Humans are flawed, either negligently or intentionally. There's also the insider threat, where organizations have to vet their employees and make sure they have people that are working for the organizations who actually care and they can trust that these people are who they say they are and not going to damage their system. All it takes, folks, is one email that you click on from someone you don't know, or an employee using a USB drive to infect your network system of the organization. We need to have policies in place and keep everyone trained and understand their roles and responsibilities to protect your information, your data. As we always say, folks, as we do every week on the show, hashtag stay cyberwoke, folks, stay informed. We'll be right back here at Cybersecurity Warriors TV after these messages.
Welcome to Professional Performance Magazine Live. Hi, I'm Dr. Jeffrey McGee, and for decades I've had the passion, the curiosity to get inside the minds of super achievers and performers across the globe and visit with them, not from a featurey standpoint. Don't really care what sort of tree you think you are if you were a tree. Don't really care what your favorite ice cream is. What I'm really curious about is, how do successful people think? How do they operate? What drives them? How do they deal with adversity and challenges, as all of us face diversity and challenge? But how do they keep going, and how do they take their dreams and electrify them with passion and bring them to reality? And for decades, I've been the publisher of ProfessionalPerformanceMagazine.com, where each quarter we went out and crossed the globe and gathered about 20 to 30 phenomenal personalities and asked them to share via the printed word their secrets to success, share their mental DNA from which the rest of us could learn. And over the years, we've had the opportunity to do some live video streaming interviews. as well as audio interviews through the years with these personalities as well. And what we're bringing to you here on Professional Performance Magazine Live platform are those interviews, are those words of wisdom from their mouth to your head so you can take action. I'm Jeffrey McGee. Thank you for stopping into our programming, our station, and enjoy.
Hi folks, welcome back to Cybersecurity Awareness TV. I'm your host, Mac Jackson Jr. In this segment, we are talking about what can you do to protect your information, your data, from these type of data breaches like from Uber and from the Unified School District and alike. Well folks, the thing that you can do to protect your information is consistently change your password. Now, if you're a customer of Uber or the Clark County School, LA School District alike, make sure that you protect your information by changing your passwords consistently. That's the first thing you can do, is make sure you change your passwords, folks, especially if there's been a data breach, because if your information is out there and your passwords are stolen or compromised, the hackers will use it to log back into the systems as you. So you need to change your passwords immediately. I would definitely suggest doing that right away. And also stay aware and make sure you don't give information about yourself in social media that can affect your family. For example, folks, information about a vacation that you're planning on going on, a trip around the world or another country. You're going to be gone for 3 weeks. You just advertise to the world that no one's going to be watching your house while you're on vacation. It's not cool to do that. Now, when you come back, you can show videos or pictures from where you've been, but not before, folks. Just little common sense things like that, folks, will give you an extra layer of protection. But again, the first line of defense is your password. It's like the front door of your home. You want to make sure that lock is changed, especially if you understand that people have tampered with the lock on your front door previously and could possibly tamper the front door lock of your home. You need to change that lock. So make sure that lock is your password, you change it. Now, speaking of passwords, like we've always stated in this show, use a passphrase, folks. Not a password, a passphrase. This could be any English sentence that you or your family can understand. The reason why I mention this, folks, again, it's because families now are on the internet, are multi-generational. You have your younger folks to the elderly, grandparents, also sharing the same internet of a home, of a household. If you have a complex password, they're not going to be able to remember it. Therefore, they're going to write it down on a piece of paper or put it somewhere. And by doing that, you just created currency. If that paper is lost or stolen, now you can expose your network system to possible hackers and criminals. I would suggest using a passphrase, something that your family, that's near and dear to your family, that they can understand, an English sentence that they can understand, and that's your passphrase. Use that to be able to access your router and your information on your network. Those are just some of the tips we recommend, folks. There are lots of others, especially for you, those of you who have businesses and want to make sure that you have policies and procedures in place and have your employees trained on the best cybersecurity policies that can help you protect your data. You can do that by going to my website. That's at macjacksonjr.com, macjacksonjr.com, or Vanderson Cyber Group will help you put together policies and procedures and train your employees on a biannual basis to make sure that you're on top of the latest cyber threats that can affect your organization, folks. That's all we have for this week, folks, for you here at Cybersecurity Awareness TV. We hope that you'll do us one more favor, and that is to like, subscribe, and share this information with everybody you know, folks. We must stay aware and be on top of this. Until next week, folks, I'm Mac Jackson Jr. Thank you.